Dear friends, in this episode, we will explore one of the most underestimated dimensions in the discussions of drug risk: time. Many people defending drugs rely on a static viewpoint. I am using it responsibly now. My friends are fine. My experience was positive. But scientific research repeatedly shows addiction is never just a momentary issue. It is a multi-year, sometimes multi-decade, developmental process. When we factor in the dimension of time, a highly consistent pattern emerges across cultures, across drug types. In neuroscience and addiction behavior studies, there is a nearly universal conclusion. The human brain inevitably adapts to repeated stimulation. This adaptation is not a moral failure or a lack of willpower. It's a basic function of the nervous system. Whether the substance is alcohol, nicotine, opioids, stimulants, or psychedelics, long-term or repeated use triggers two key mechanisms. One is the tolerance gradually develops. Another is the reward thresholds shift upward. In simpler terms, the brain gets used to what once felt intense. The same dose produces weaker effects. This isn't because users want more, but because the nervous system has recalibrated. In long-term addiction studies, one finding stands out. Almost no one loses control at the beginning. Most people start from a place of perceived control, low frequency of use, controlled doses, positive subjective experiences, stable self-assessment. And yet, this everything seems fine phase is exactly what lays the groundwork for future risk. As time goes on, several real-life variables inevitably shift. We age, life responsibilities increase, stress level rise, emotional and physical recovery slow, novelty fades. Meanwhile, the brain has been artificially taught to experience a higher intensity of stimulation, and then a critical turning point appears. Across many longitudinal studies, we repeatedly see this. The original dose stops producing the same high. Usage frequency shortens. Anticipation for the next time intensifies. The motivation shifts from exploration to restoration. At this stage, many users still believe they are rational. They said, I just know how to use it better now. I am adjusting based on need. I am not addicted. But neuroscience shows this is exactly what the development of tolerance looks like. Once a substance is no longer enough, the brain does not simply return to baseline. Instead, it starts seeking new pathways to re-achieve what it once felt. This is known as escalation pressure. The so-called drug escalation chain does not necessarily mean jumping directly from one substance to another more heavy drug. Its more common form includes dose escalation, frequency escalation, combination use, transitioning from occasional to functional dependence. In this process, users often do not perceive themselves as escalating because each step seems reasonable, gradual, and justifiable. It is this gradual progression that continuously delays risks and weakens vigilance. Some may find the metaphor of boiling the frog in warm water too exaggerated. But from the perspective of neuroscience and long-term data, it is actually a very accurate description. The brain adapts far better to slow changes than to sudden ones. When risks are gradual, justifiable, self-rationalizable, humans almost instinctively do not sound the alarm. By the time the loss of control is truly realized, one has often crossed the multiple irreversible thresholds. Behavior habits are reshaped. Reward systems are recalibrated. Satisfaction with real life decreases. Stopping use itself becomes painful. When we combine decades of addiction research, cross-substance data, and long-term follow-ups, we arrive at a disturbing yet extremely clear conclusion. The drug escalation chain is not isolated incidents, but probabilistic events. It does not require everyone to reach the end point. It only needs enough people over a long enough time to be pushed irreversibly. This is the fundamental reason why no type of drug can be trivialized from a public health perspective. Hallucinogens are not immediately addictive or lethally toxic like traditional drugs, which has led some to mistakenly view them as safe or even a shortcut to spiritual enlightenment. However, the real danger lies in the profound disturbance of the psychological state, distortion of judgment, and the potential for abuse in unsupervised environments, where their awakening effect can easily turn into a trap of collapse. The danger does not come from their toxicity, but from our fantasies about them. Now, let us reflect together. Why have drugs become a cultural imprint? We must understand a fact at the social psychology level. When a behavior exists long-term in a culture through music, art, countercultural narratives, the so-called self-exploration drugs are no longer seen as risks, but as identity symbols, cultural expressions, or even symbols of intellectual freedom. They are no longer just substances, but postures, attitudes, metaphors of resistance against social norms. But we must be aware, cultural habits do not equate to rationality. Pervasiveness does not mean harmlessness. Popularity does not mean correctness. I want to say to many friends younger than me, in this era of information overload, diverse aesthetics, fragmented values, feeling out of touch, longing for acceptance are understandable emotions. But please remember, do not give up your bottom line. Do not compromise it. Do not sacrifice principle to be popular. Do not set aside judgment for the sake of being trendy. Also, do not forget that just because certain behavior seems cool in some social circles, the cost is your own physical and mental health, even your future. You may not know how many people regret when they wake up, having gone too far down that path. Regret that they abandoned their once clear intuition too early. It started as just trying it out, but later turned into, I can't do without it. And the starting point for all this is often just to avoid ridicule, exclusion, or to appear intellectually liberated. People are quick to deconstruct others, but often hesitant to confront the hidden hypnosis in the cultural environment we find ourselves in with those soft drugs that continuously erode our judgment. Even if everyone around you says, it's okay, everyone does it. Even if you are labeled uncool or too uptight. Even if you feel very alone. Always remember, powerful individuals are those who can maintain clarity amidst the temptation, hold on to beliefs in chaos. The society we live in is not a collection of isolated individuals, but is held together by various invisible tensions of relationships. In a society gradually accepting drug culture, individual judgments can also be influenced by norm shifts. At this point, everyone does it becomes the most powerful psychological driver. Our moral judgment shifts from this is wrong to everyone does it, so it's not a big deal. This phenomenon is also known in ethics as normative paralysis, a group moral slippery slope created by the environment, leading to a dimming of one's clear views of right and wrong. What we truly need to safeguard is not the worship or reliance on any substance or experience, but the clear boundary within ourselves. It should not rely on laws, policies, trends, or guidance from others, but originate from a deep understanding of their overall relationships. My choices are not just my own. My boundaries affect my relationship with myself, with others, with the world. It affects the entire relational field. May we, amidst the waves of the times, still hold on to the boundary in our hearts, even if it's consistently being hit like the coastline. May it still be a lighthouse of self-reminders. Thank you for your time. I will see you in the next episode.